to another edition of KJY Sports, a program that is dedicated to promoting sports in schools. As usual on KJY Sports, we talk about sports either in primary schools, nursery schools, secondary schools, university, high schools. Once it has to do with sports in an educational institution, this program, that's its business. And today, I have a very, very, very important guest because this is what KJY Sports guest of the week. I'll get to introduce him, but first of all, let me just put a foundation about who he is. He's a distinguished educator, as I said earlier. He also has been head of school in quite a number of international schools in Nigeria, in Abuja, and a couple in Lagos. And today, and currently, he is head of school of a very distinguished school right here in Lagos Island, and that is in Ikoyi. And let's get to meet our guest of today, and that of this week, and that is Mr. Barret, head teacher, Lagos Preparatory School. It's nice having you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. Proud to come in here. We have had a couple of discussions in the past, both of us, and quite a number of things you've highlighted, which is pretty interesting, and it's good having some of those things on camera, and that is why you are guest of the week. Okay, now the first thing we want to ask ourselves is what? Is sports important in education at all?
Sport should be important in education. We should be educating the whole child, not just the intellectual part of the child, but the emotional part of the child and the physical part of the child as well. So to me, it's absolutely essential that we have a program of physical education in school and opportunities for those children who excel at sports to have the opportunity to show what they can do through inter-school competition, inter-house competitions like we have here at Lagos Prep.
Surely, you have had the opportunity of hearing from our guest himself. That's Mr. Barret. So it's time to introduce myself. My name is Joachim Idada. Okay, now let's look at education and professional sports. We've talked about the foundation. Now let's go to the top, because the top of sports is professional sports. Does education have anything to do with professional sports?
Yes, because education should be educating the child, supporting them in the areas that they're gifted and supporting them in the areas where perhaps they're not quite so good. We should be giving the opportunity for children who are very good at sport to be able to progress and achieve their potential. And for some children, that will be in later life becoming professional sports people.
It's good. You've laid the correct foundation. Can you give, because of your vast experience in sports, internationally and locally, especially in Nigeria, can you just do a little appraisal of what you think the standard of school sport is in Nigeria?
It depends where you are in Nigeria, what sort of school you are. If you are in a school like this, a private school, very often sports have quite a high priority. There are a couple of schools in Nigeria that have done very well in the COBIS, the Council of British International Schools, sports. They've won them, they've been runners-up. So the level of sport can be good. The problem in Nigeria tends to be that sometimes sport is not always in focus. Unless perhaps it's football. We all know that there's a Nigerian obsession with football. But there are lots of other sports that obviously children can take. And it's really making sure that children have the opportunity to experience all those different sports and find out what they're good at, what they enjoy, and then push them to their potential. And I think that perhaps is what's missing in large areas of Nigeria, where we know there are talented sports people. We know because if we look at the British Olympic team, if we look at a lot of Premiership football teams, there are people there who are either Nigerian or of Nigerian descent. So clearly the talent is there. The knack is to make sure that that talent is exploited, and particularly here in Nigeria, so that people don't have to go overseas to become top sports people.
What we observe of recent is that whenever you talk about sports, all the parents knows, or maybe the average educator, let me not say the educators, the average educator just talks about sports, and the only thing they talk about is soccer. Because if we say football, we know there's American football and there is the normal football that I and you know. So let us try to distinguish the two. One is called soccer, the other one is called football. That's the American football. All we talk about is soccer. And that's why when you go to an average school in Nigeria, if you go to an average school anywhere, we say, my school, we take sports very important. And all they are doing is soccer, diversity, sports diversity. How critical is that?
Well, it's only focusing on one area, and there can be people who are very good or potentially very good sports people in other sports. I think it's because it's soccer that gets the exposure on TV. It's what everybody sees. It's the household names everybody knows. They're all soccer players. The same thing in Brazil. Everybody wants to be a soccer player. If you're in New Zealand, everybody wants to be an all-black rugby player. So it's not unique to Nigeria, but I think we need to be giving people the opportunity to try other sports. We know that there's quite a thriving cricket league here in Lagos, for example. We know that quite a few Nigerians fence. Do people get the opportunity? Yes. Only the other day, the Fencing Association approached us. They want to be running fencing at our school.
Whoa,
so
that's
surprising.
Good. I thought fencing was actually just a foreign sport. I can't. You're surprised with this information. I'm overwhelmed.
So there are lots of other sports. Swimming, for example, is a good example that we can give. We're part of the Dolphin League, which includes about 10 local schools here in Lagos. And it's giving the children who are good swimmers the opportunity to see how good they are against swimmers from other schools. And the aim there is to pick a team that will be able to go off and hold its own in international competition. Already, the Okoye Club, just up the road from us here, they send a team every year to an international swimming meet in Germany. And I believe last year, actually, the Okoye team won. So there is the opportunity, but it's limited to people who live in the more wealthy suburbs of Lagos rather than perhaps people who don't have access to swimming pools. And it's such a shame because there is a lot of water in Nigeria. And so why aren't we exploiting that?
That is the question I wanted to just ask. You got a lot of water. A lot of water, lagoons, streams, rivers, and even the Lagos Ocean. The ocean is covers about 3-4 states in Nigeria. That's Lagos State, Ondo State, you have it, Delta State, River State, and even Akwa Ibom State. So you got so much water. Meanwhile, swimming seems to be difficult. Will I say difficult? Or Olympic style swimming? It's not so popular in Nigeria. What can you ascribe to the reason why?
I'm not sure. I think part of it is there's this stereotype that West Africans can't swim. We know that South Africans can swim. We know Egyptians can swim very well. But people feel that West Africans can't, so perhaps it's not such a focus. Also, you need a swimming pool. I mean, you've mentioned a lot of water like lagoons and so on, and people could, but we know there's a lot of pollution in those waters, so perhaps it's not very safe to swim in them, and we'd be better off with swimming pools. And of course, that's expense, and they cost quite a lot of money to build and maintain, and we know that large parts of Nigeria don't have the money to do that, which is a shame, because I do think that Nigeria could shock the world with some swimmers.
I believe so.
If people were given the opportunity. But they've got to be given that opportunity. And you mentioned before that, we know that Nigerian parents are very driven by academic success,
sure,
particularly in things like maths and English and science and so on. Very important, very, very important. But actually what's also important is that we raise rounded children, rounded, responsible members of society. And if these people want to go outside Nigeria and they want to go to top-ranking universities around the world, they don't just look at the academic results, they actually look at what else the student does, which might be drama, it might be music, it might be art, it might be sport, it might be community service. All of these things show that the people, when they're applying for university, are well-rounded and interesting people who can lead and put something back into society.
It takes about 20 years to raise a top athlete when it comes to sports. 20 years, starting from the beginning till the day he either wins an Olympic medal or if he doesn't win an Olympic medal, he's maybe one of the top athletes in that sport, but he's a professional athlete. And that means if we do a little mathematics or regression, 20 years means that that individual must have gotten involved in any sport pretty early in his life for him to peak at that particular time. So let us look at sports at the elementary level, the nursery level, where I know you are really, really, really involved. How with your experience in Lagos Preparatory School, how many hours, let me put it that way, how many hours, what level of commitment do you put into sports at the elementary level in your school, and what will you advocate generally?
Well, I think if a child isn't going to become an elite sports person at school as just doing their normal PE lessons, they'd have 2 or 3 PE lessons in the week. But again, we would expect children to be doing a lot of activity outside of school, not necessarily formal, but it could be playing football in the streets, it could be running, it could be anything that doesn't require necessarily that much in the way of facilities, just enjoying themselves. Children expend a lot of energy physically if given the opportunity. If they want to become better at a sport, then obviously they have to put a great deal of effort and commitment into becoming a top sports person. And so we have a swimming club that meets 3 or 4 times a week. They come for an hour before school every morning. And of course, it's not just the child that has to put the commitment in. It's very often the parents as well, because they have to get them up, turf them out of bed, get them brought to school, make sure they've got all their stuff. And so there has to be a commitment from the parents as well as the children. I've known some parents of an international Olympic athlete in the UK, and they spent a lot of time, a lot of weekends, taking this athlete round to various athletic and track meets around the country and internationally. It's a big commitment for both the aspiring athlete and their family.
You're talking about the level of commitment by the parents. So and that is where we need to begin to ask ourselves. You say you bring the children to school pretty early.
They're in 6:30 in the morning.
6:30. Now, let us look at it from proximity. Proximity between the school and the house. I know in America and in England, there is a general policy where every child must go to a school that is within his locality. But I know in Nigeria, that policy, I don't know whether we have that policy. Even though they will say they have that policy in the books. But does it really happen? Because we know there are children who live far away in Ikorodu and who live far away in Aweyaya or living far away, so far away, and they come to Lagos Preparatory School. So now the question that bothers me, how does proximity between the house and the school, how does it impact in the ability of the child to really excel in sports?
Well, obviously, if you've got facilities close by, it's a lot easier. If you only have to travel 10, 15 minutes to get to the facility, it's a lot easier than if you've got to travel an hour and a half. And we know what the traffic can be like here in Lagos. So you don't have to live too far away to be a long time away in time. So I think it's important that the commitment is there. The commitment is there. It doesn't matter how far. I've known people in the UK travel to elite facilities that are a long way away, 20, 30, 40 miles. Or perhaps it doesn't take that long. It might take 45, 50 minutes. But if that's before school, that's time there, time to get back to school. It's quite a commitment. And of course, if you win an Olympic gold or you become a top professional sports person, it's all worth it because all of that time and energy has actually paid off. But of course, a lot of people, even though they put in the time and the energy, are not going to become Olympic champions. They're not even perhaps going to become even Olympic contestants, and they're not going to become high-earning sports people. So you have to make that commitment without knowing whether it's actually going to pay off. And people are only human. I know, having listened to top Olympic athletes in the UK are interviewed, they say how much it's been worth getting up at the crack of dawn in cold weather in the UK, and they don't want to do it, but they struggle and they do it. And for them it's paid off. But for every one Olympic champion, there are obviously tens of thousands of Olympic hopefuls who never make it, but have put in all that time and effort at the beginning.
You said you wanted to be a top football player, a professional player, and you never clicked for it.
If it was just down to time, effort and commitment, I would be an ex-England international now. As it was, I never got beyond playing medium-grade club football at a very amateur level. Yeah. But, I enjoyed it and I wanted to play it all the time. And I think that's important, enjoyment. Of course, you have to try hard. But if you get the enjoyment out of it, that makes it all worthwhile. Nobody likes to do things that they don't enjoy. We tend to give those things up. We tend to put less effort in. So I think it's up to coaches to actually make the training sessions, whatever they are, for whatever sport, or whether it's music, drama, or whatever, enjoyable and worthwhile and fulfilling. And then people will want to come and want to continue.
You're talking about coaching, and that is a critical aspect of sports development, because the coaching is not right, the child will not first of all enjoy the sport, and that will he be able to acquire the right technique and capacity to even excel. So the foundation must be right. But there's this belief, especially for many managers of the educational system, owners of schools, proprietors, they believe the PE teacher is good enough to coach any sport. Do you agree?
To a certain level, yes, of course. Really, they're the entry into the sporting arena. But if you want to become an elite sports person, then you do need top quality coaching. If you look at the England football setup, soccer setup at the moment,
yes,
it's doing really well. They've got the new training facilities, and that appears to be paying off with the under-17s and the under-20s winning their respective World Cups. So that really is giving the opportunity for young players to receive the very best coaching. And if we take that as a model, it's obviously paying off. But not every country is either rich enough or committed enough to want to put that sort of money into sport. We're very lucky in the UK that the Premier League generates so much money that a lot of money comes from those clubs into the FA to actually set up academies and so on and so forth. But academy is a good example. How many academy players actually make it through to the first team and actually go on even to become professional footballers in the Premier League, let alone top internationals? A lot of them fall by the wayside, even though they've made it to one of the top academies. And I think, again, it brings us back to none of us actually know what's there in the future. You've got to enjoy it and want it and be driven, but also accept that you might never actually make it to the very top. How many Lionel Messis are there in the world, And so I keep coming back to, it's an all-round commitment from the coaches, from the aspiring athletes, from the parents, the family, to work together to do that. And it is a big ask. And some people don't want to do it because they say, I would much rather that my child is able to go out and do things other teenagers do rather than have to go to bed early, get up early, live a very structured life, have a special diet and all those things that people now need to become a top person.
That's discipline.
Very big amount of discipline required, yeah.
You've outlined quite a lot of things. One issue I would like to also focus on just right now is infrastructure, because you did mention it. Many schools, managers of schools, many owners of educational institutions, they just feel somehow reluctant to invest in sports. So what role does the PTA have in all of the sports development strategy, plan, processes of a school? What role should the PTA be playing in all of that?
I think a very supportive role, because they often have funds that the schools themselves don't have to put in facilities to support the coaches and the teachers when they're trying to push the children forward. And that's not just sport. That, as I've mentioned before, could be music, art, drama, anything like that, that actually is outside of the mainstream curriculum that the school offers. And we're very lucky here. We've got a lovely 25-metre pool. We've got AstroTurf around the school, so we can play in all weathers and swim in pretty well most weathers.
And you have a good hall.
And we have a lovely multi-purpose hall, very large hall, which can be used for basketball, indoor tennis, badminton, table tennis. All of those sports really are important. Once a country gets a champion and they start to get known around the country, they become a household name, many people start to take up that activity because they've got something of a role model to follow. I know in Britain, for example, cycling has become very popular because of the success of the cycling teams and the racers in the Tour de France. And so now you go back and you see lots of cyclists out on the road. I'm not saying that they're going to become top cyclists, but they're staying fit and they're enjoying what they do. And I think that's very, very important because we've been talking about elite sport. But actually, one of the roles of elite sport is to inspire people to get out there and have a go themselves. And it's not that they themselves will become top athletes, but they're keeping fit. And that's very important because we know that there is something of an obesity crisis in the world. And part of that is that people don't do enough exercise. It's very easy to walk from your house to a car, to school, back in the car to the house and never get out from the sofa and watch lots of sport in between. But that's not actually making you fit. And whether you're going to become a top athlete or not, keeping a good level of fitness is good in your life because as we're all getting older, we need to stay fitter for longer. People in Britain used to die a couple of years after they retired, mid-late 60s. Now they're going on to their 90s. And so it's more important that their bodies are kept fitter for longer so that as they're living longer, they don't end up becoming a burden on the health service and taking lots and lots of tablets and medicines all the time. Because medicine will keep people alive, but it won't necessarily give them the quality of life that they would enjoy.
Okay, because you're talking about obesity, so I think it's time for us to just clearly come out and say, can we just quickly do an outline of what is the benefit? Because a lot of parents do not know. All they're interested in is, oh, my child goes to a top school, the school they have 90% A's, the GCSE, it's all 100%, WAEC is 100%. That's all they talk about. But when you go abroad, like you said earlier, before a school begins to even reel out the academic performances of the school or their students, the first thing they always tell you, oh, we've got children playing in this league, we've got this. All of things that I classify more as skill acquisition programs. Can we just quickly do a quick outline of what are the benefits of sports, especially within the school environment, so that when parents, if they have time to listen to this interview, even educators listening from you and listening to you, they will be able to say, okay, I listened to him say this. I'll try to put in some effort, especially for the sake of our children. Can you just outline the benefits?
Well, you've got the physical benefits that we've talked about already. They're clearly there with sport. But there's a lot of character building that goes on in sport. Resilience. If you're a sports person, you have to learn to lose. You have to learn to be a gracious winner. You have to learn to be part of a team. You have to learn to be competitive. You have to learn to be disciplined. So there are a whole range of areas that sport actually addresses in creating a good person, a positive person, a responsible person. And I think that's one of the great roles of sport anywhere, and particularly in school. It's not just the physical side, it's all the emotional, the social, the character building side that's important as well.
Let's talk about the Dolphin League.
Dolphin League.
It's important we talk about the Dolphin League. We have so much water. We have so much river. We tried to outline it earlier. When you talked about the Dolphin League, can you just educate us? Let us know what is the vision behind the whole idea of creating the Dolphin League.
Okay, well, the Dolphin League has been set up by a company called Danaspro, and they have brought together about 10 private schools in and around Lagos, and it will give children the opportunity to attend several swim meets in a year, because one of the problems with swimming is often you don't have many opportunities to come together and compete. And then the aim is that children will improve their times because they'll be competing against other top swimmers. That is really important. And again, perhaps at the end, we'll be able to choose a combined team from the schools and send the team overseas to compete in international competition. I think competition is important, or at least the right level of competition is important. We all know that in soccer sometimes competition can become a bit frenetic and a bit counterproductive. But certainly in swimming, I think it's very important. Posting times, improving your times, particularly because it's an individual sport, is very, very important. And again, from my past, I've known children who've come from quite isolated areas. They've been the best swimmer in their area. They, of course, have gone to compete in bigger competitions and found that, of course, they're no longer the best. They might well be the last. But what we have noticed is that their personal bests have improved dramatically once they've had the opportunity to swim against people from other schools. And that is very important. I think the Dolphin League will also raise the profile of swimming in and around these schools. And perhaps people that are not naturally into swimming will become attracted to it and will take part. I mean, we may not always have swimming pools here in Nigeria, but we have got a lot of beautiful weather, and it's always very pleasant to go swimming in Nigeria, unlike some countries like the UK, where you've got very cold weather and you rely on expensive indoor pools to actually have to practice. Here, we can swim outdoors, which is a real boon and a real advantage.
It's nice talking to you. But before we go, can you give one counsel, just one important counsel? Counsel to the parent and a counsel to the educator.
And what I would say to parents is support your child in whatever they've shown a talent, an enthusiasm, an interest for, because you never know where that's going to lead. And if it's in sport, then that could lead to a whole new career, highly paid career. It may not do, but at least it would lead to fit and healthy children for the future. What I would say to educators is try and give the children as many opportunities as you possibly can to experience as many different types of sports as you can, because you never know what might turn up in your school. Soccer is great. It's my favourite sport, but it's not the only sport. And there are a lot of talented people out there who need the opportunity to develop their talent and show it off.
It's nice talking to you.
Nice
Thank you
talking
for
to you.
joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, that is our special guest for the week. Hope you have learned something. Till next week, we'll bring somebody else. Until then, my name remains Joaquin Dada, your usual anchor. Stay blessed.